I don't know, I'm just struck by your beauty today. This singing is marvelous what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. So, God. God is other. God is not us. God is different than us. God is uniquely other. If we're to know God at all, it seems to me, it will not be through us seeking God, but through God revealing God's self to us. And in that revelation, we might seek God, but without God making the first step, it seems to me it would be impossible for us to know God. So seek God while he wills to be found, as it says in Isaiah. Call upon him when he draws near, it says. Well, I want you to turn in the Bible. There's a Bible in the pew in front of you called, well, it says Holy Bible, but it's a black book and it looks like this, right? It's called the Holy Bible. See if you can find it. You'll recognize it. I know you. But turn to page 867 in the Holy Bible. I want to note for you something interesting. The Gospel of Mark. We're in the year B, we call it, in the church cycle, where every Sunday you come to church. You do come to church for lots of different reasons. I know you do, right? Some of you are coming because it's a habit. And would that everyone, let me just be less coy about this. I expect everyone to get in the habit of coming to church every week. I expect you to get in the habit of coming to church. There, I said it. Hate me if you want, but that's what I expect. Now, but you come to church because it's a habit. You come to church because you're looking for God to do something with you or for you. You come to church because someone has told you that church is a good thing to have. You come to church to be in community. And I'm hoping that you come to church moreover or mostly to seek God as God has revealed God's self. Now, where might you find God? Of course, in the sacraments, of course, in the community, but also in the Holy Bible. Now, on page 867, at the beginning, verse 1, chapter 1, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. As it is written in Isaiah the prophet, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, who shall prepare thy way, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. Prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. John the baptizer appeared in the wilderness. Now, that is the first of God's self-revelations in the Gospel of Mark. In the first 28 verses of the Gospel of Mark, there are no fewer than 6 God self-revelations. 28 verses, 6 epiphanies. Epiphany meaning manifestation or new learning or a sudden coming to understand, a new understanding, right? And see, this is what the season we're in, Epiphany, and is also what the gospel talks about today when at the very end they say, gee whiz, it's Jesus, it's a new teaching. And it changes their being, it changes their understanding for some of them. A new teaching with authority, it says. So I was interested to look in the first 28 chapters of Mark's Gospel and find that there are no fewer than 6 epiphanies or self-revelations of God. The first, John the Baptist, saying the Messiah is coming. Then later in verse 11, a voice from heaven at Jesus' baptism saying that Jesus is the Messiah, the second epiphany. The third epiphany, Jesus' temptation, where we learn that Jesus is beyond the reach of Satan. Right? And then the fourth epiphany, the good news, Jesus proclaiming that his own arrival inaugurates the kingdom of God. The fourth epiphany. The fifth epiphany, Jesus' first public act, he casts out an unclean spirit. And the sixth epiphany, his teaching, where we learn that his teaching stands alone, that Jesus' teaching is different than any teaching that they had ever heard before in that place, and that he teaches with the authority of God. You can close your Bibles, but not for good. Yeah, but for now. Don't you think that's interesting? 28, one page in the Bible, 28 verses, 6 different epiphanies. Okay. 6 different ways that we've been given a new teaching. Is there anything we hate more than a new teaching? Is there anything we hate more than someone challenging us, saying, here's something you haven't thought of before. Think of it this way. And we are forced then to say, oh my gosh, does that person have authority or not? And should I think about that or not? And should I believe that or not? And should I change based on that or not? A new teaching with authority. I don't think there's anything we hate more than new teaching. Those of us who are secure in who we are, yes, who are sure that we know more than we used to know, or we know more than we ever knew, or we know more than anybody ever knew, or we sure know more than the person next to us. No doubt you know more than anyone in your room. Now, I have my life pretty well figured out. I have for some time, I think, yeah? And I don't need anybody coming with some new teaching and messing with my life. Perhaps you feel that same way. I will fight at all costs to my dying breath any new teaching if it represents an existential threat to who I think I am and what I think I know. Have you ever been so challenged? Notice that the demon who Jesus exorcises from this man, the demon doesn't just say, oh yeah, you know what, okay, I guess I'll move out. What does the demon do? It shrieks as it leaves. It shrieks. It says no. Which I think tells us two things. One, it tells us that Jesus has power over all things, even the unclean spirits, even the spiritual realm. Jesus has power over. That's an epiphany. The second thing, it tells us the difficulty of displacing entrenched power. Very difficult to displace entrenched power in our lives. Now, was Jesus' teaching, this miraculous new teaching with authority, was it accepted or rejected? Who said both? Because you are correct, I think. In my opinion, you are correct. It was accepted by some and rejected by others. Who were the ones who accepted his teaching? I think those who were ready for the teaching. And to be ready for teaching, you have to have a soft heart. You have to be soft and be ready to learn, right? Versus those who have hard hearts. People who have hard hearts aren't ready to learn. People who have hard hearts believe they've learned everything they ever need to learn. And in fact, they can teach us a few things. People with hard hearts aren't going to hear the teaching. It's the difference between those with nothing to lose, the soft-hearted ones, and those with everything to lose, the hard-hearted ones. And the question for us as we hear this self-revelation of God is, which camp are we in? Are we soft-hearted or hard-hearted? What do demons and despots have in common? What do demons and despots have in common? They both hold unearned and unwarranted power over their victims, and they both abuse and exploit that power to enrich themselves. That's what despots and demons do. They have it pretty good. They don't want anybody challenging them. Can you remember a time when your heart was less hardened? Can you remember a time when our hearts were less hardened? I think when we were children, right? When we were children, we're open to learning. We're open to new teaching. We crave it. We long for it. Everything is new, and we're ready for it. And we'll take it in, when we're children. And then maybe we get hurt, and we shut down. Or, worse yet, maybe we get our way. And in getting our way through our own purposes, through our own self-driving, we get our way over other people. And in getting our way, we lose our way. Somewhere, you guys, as an adult, I became hardened. My heart became hardened. I became closed off. I can't remember exactly when, but I know it happened. I became arrogant. I became self-centered. I became self-righteous. I became self-confident. And I became self-sufficient to my mind. And I then was unable or unwilling to hear any new teaching that might challenge me. See, who needs Jesus if Jesus makes my life harder and not easier? These are the thoughts of one in power. I just want you to think today about having a soft heart to accept God's own self-revelation so that you might too hear this teaching and allow yourself to take it in and to maybe even have your heart changed, maybe even have your mind changed, maybe even have your life changed. This is what it's about to know God. So, I say to you, keep learning. Never stop learning. Do all kinds of learning. Why? Because it keeps us young. It keeps our hearts soft. It keeps us flexible. It keeps us alive to learn. Nothing is more soul-killing than a hardened heart unwilling to risk learning something new. Today, the 28th of January, 2018, this church, we celebrate another successful year of ministry together. I can't wait to tell you about it. We are growing, which means we are learning. We're learning together. And as we commit to and look forward to another year together, the year of Mark's Gospel, I ask that we do that with open hearts and open minds and open spirits. Might we commit to each other to approach our common life together this year with soft hearts and open minds, to read, to mark, to learn, to inwardly digest, as it says, Mark's Gospel. The first written, the fastest read, and perhaps the clearest revelation of who God is. Let's do it together, right? And let's be open to this new teaching, this authority that Jesus brings, right? Or do we think we already know everything that we could possibly know about God? See, here's the thing. If you're here to get comfort, I hope you find it. If you're here to get community, I know you'll find it. If you're here to get communion, it's all for you. If you're here to meet God, I hope you will. If you want to know more about God and you want to know how I think you should know more about God, I'm going to say get in a group that studies the Bible. We have 7 or 8, don't we? Bible studies here, and if we don't have enough, we'll start more. I love to do it. You love to do it. We should get together and talk about what this new teaching is, because that's how we know more about God. So, let's read Mark's Gospel together this year, and if our hearts are soft enough, we might be amazed by what happens to us as individuals and as a church.